Hi, it's me, Lindsay, from The Lindsay Life. I've been doing some cleaning up around the house and I've come across a bunch of different knit and crochet challah covers that I've made or designed. So I wanted to take a couple minutes and just show you some of them to hopefully inspire you with some options for making your own challah covers. I've got links in the description for the video on where you can grab the patterns and anything else that I mention that you might be interested in. So let's get started. This crocheted challah cover is round. I was thinking about Rosh Hashanah and having a happy sweet new year, dipping apples in honey. And I wanted to kind of do a honeycomb design, and I knew hexes would be totally perfect for that. But one of the special things we do on Rosh Hashanah is we have round challahs. So I wanted to figure out how, once I had these hexes in place, how to kind of create these wedge motifs and build it up to wind up with a circular challah cover. I had a lot of fun making this one. When I showed it to my neighbor, she loved it. She thought that the post stitches that kind of give the texture and the hexagons actually reminded her of challah braids. So when I was working those post stitches, it got a little complicated. Now, I was totally in the mood for that, and I was happy with that level of complexity, but I knew that that's not everybody's cup of tea. So when I wrote up the pattern for this one, the pattern actually has two versions. It has these hexagons with the post stitches and the wedge motifs with the post stitches. But I also wrote up instructions for a totally flat hexagon, just double crochet and chain stitches, and for a flat wedge without any post stitches. I also, once again, because I love working from symbol diagrams, I did all the written instructions. So if you're a written instruction person, you can totally just follow those. But for those of us who are more visual, I did symbol diagrams for both versions of the hexagon and the wedge motifs. I also did a symbol diagram showing how this kind of join as you go border is worked around the motifs and how they join to one another. So this was just, it was such a fun project to work on. I still have to weave in some of my ends, but I'm really looking forward to having this on our Rosh Hashanah table. This is actually the first challah cover I designed. It says Shabbat in Hebrew letters. This is a crochet challah cover, and the technique used to crochet this is called filet crochet. With filet crochet, you've got open spaces and filled spaces, and the combination that they're put together can form letters for a word like this, and a geometric design just like this. I was so proud of this because it was my first time figuring out how to get the Hebrew letters into the design. And filet crochet, a lot of times the design is given to you as a chart, and you follow the instructions on the chart across to tell you when to leave it open and when to make a closed block or closed space. But I knew that some people like working from charts and some people don't. So I did two versions of the pattern. It's all in the same PDF. And you can choose whether you want to work from the chart, or I also have the instructions completely written out. So if charts aren't your thing, you can make this challah cover completely following written directions. Now, filet crochet is great for what I would call advanced beginners, because the only stitches you're using are double crochet stitches and chain stitches. So there's not a lot of real technical, complicated stitches going on. What does make this a little different is this is made with crochet thread, which is thinner than most yarn. So if you tried doing this in like a bulky worsted weight yarn, it would be huge. It would be a tablecloth, not a challah cover, which you totally could do. Now, another I guess you could say thing aesthetic you get with filet crochet is the open spaces. So I've seen some people who leave it just open like this. I give some instructions in the pattern as to how you can line the back side with fabric. If you're kind of in a rush and you're not feeling like you could get a sewn lining done in time, then what you can do is you put your challah down, put a fabric napkin on top of that, and then throw this on top of that. And the color from the fabric napkin is going to come through the spaces and really set off the Hebrew letters. This challah cover is actually knit, and it's stranded color work. It has the word Shabbat, once again spelled out in Hebrew, and it has these little wheat motifs on the side. When I was initially designing this, I was thinking of trying to do a gradient yarn, and maybe like starting with one shade of blue here and another shade of blue here, another shade of blue here, and kind of have it go across like that with the gradient. But the more I played around with it, I loved the idea of kind of wheat and earth and nature. And I was really drawn to the earth tones in the yarn. So I decided to go with kind of all different shades you would expect to find wheat in. So like wheat when it's first growing and it's green, and then kind of when it turns brown and gold, and really play around with that. So with stranded color work, this is what your back looks like. And the floats are there, but they're not huge. You don't have to worry about them catching on anything. If you are worried, you could always do a fabric lining on the back. But this is just kind of a really elegant design, kind of back to basics, something that just I could see anyone not only using for their family, but getting passed down to family throughout the years. When I charted this out, I couldn't just use the filet crochet chart I had made because the gauge with stitches was completely different. So I had to play around with recharting out the word Shabbat and the little wheat motif. But once again, just like with some of my other patterns, I know some people love working from colorwork charts and find that super easy. So I've got the colorwork charts in the pattern, but I also have a completely written version. So if you don't like to look at colorwork charts and graphs, if you'd rather just have written out, 2 green, 5 main color, 3 green, I've got you covered. And you can opt to follow that version in the pattern instead. The PDF has both. You don't have to choose when you buy. It comes with both, and then you can follow whichever version of the pattern you prefer. I love how this came out. I'm actually really tempted to see if I could make strips with just the wheat motifs and put those around wooden napkin rings and make some matching napkin rings to go with this. This challah cover is fabric and has a crocheted edging, and it's actually a really interesting story. This was a placemat. My daughter and I had gone shopping for a new tablecloth for the dining room table for Shabbos, and I was like, man, it would be so nice to have a challah cover that would match. And they were selling these placemats, that coordinated with and matched the tablecloth. So I took the placemat and I used a seam ripper to take off the back and the interfacing. And instead, I just sewed on a simple layer of cotton fabric. Then, and this is a really cool trick for working crocheted edgings, you can kind of see here, I sewed a buttonhole stitch around the whole edge, and that gave me loops to crochet into. So I wasn't crocheting into the fabric itself, I was crocheting into the loops of the sewn buttonhole stitch that I did all the way around. Now, I totally did not count my stitches here. I just winged it, and I came up and just kind of did whatever I want, which is why here you'll see there's a couple stitches, and then I had to make some extra stitches here when I got to the corner. So this is really something where you just kind of more improvise. I did not write up a pattern for this one, but the patterns for all the other challah covers I've shown you are available, and you can check out the links and get those and get started on making your own exciting challah cover.